Egil, you know me from our days at Mattel and Megablocks.
Yeah.
I'm currently a creative strategist for Skyline, who's specialized into trade show marketing. So what I do is I look at the strategy when client comes to us and the design of their booth, and I help them execute on that and have them for the best presence at shows and events.
Mm-hmm.
Skyline is obviously operating in that field.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have my colleague Carla here, who's specialized in the marketing and communication for the company.
Mm-hmm.
We're super excited to actually talk to you and chat about all kinds of different things, because I think for our audience it's going to be interesting to listen in. You have so much experience in, if I just go down the list, global experience for sure in procurement, manufacturing, logistics, supply chain, retail, e-commerce. I mean, the list kind of goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And you're currently Chief of Global Technology Network and Product Strategy at PostNord.
Yeah.
I thought you can just introduce yourself a little bit more and tell us a little bit about who's PostNord and what are you doing there right now?
So PostNord is a state-owned company owned by the Swedish state and the Danish state. And we offer services similar to what Canadian Post and Purelator and SCI is doing combined in Canada, just to make a reference to Canada. Mm. So we're into warehousing and fulfillment, heavy logistics like groupers and truckloads. We're into parcel distribution. And we are into letters and mail. So we're operating in Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Finland, and part of northern Germany. We are the biggest employer in the Nordic in terms of headcounts, and one of the biggest companies in the Nordic. If you want me to elaborate a little bit about what I'm doing, I'm defining the strategy for how we should operate in the future to when in particular within parcels. So definition of parcels in PostNord is e-commerce. So how do we win in this area? Because you can say the mail and the letter volumes is declining, and we need to find the future revenue and profit from parcels, i.e. e-commerce, and e-commerce defining as B2B and B2C, and probably also C2C. And we need to make a strategy, which I'm working on, of what products and services do we need to offer in the future to win in this segment. What is the operating model behind it, both in terms of operations, but also in terms of technology solutions, so i.e. capabilities to support this big machine.
Right, obviously. So I know you, Egil, as a supply chain passionate, and you've just brushed on a little bit the nerve of the situation going on right now. So how is your strategy changing with the current events in regard to your role right now?
Yeah, so you can say that COVID-19 has really driven some major changes, both globally, but also in our company. Prior to COVID-19, obviously, you had a lot of customers who shopped online, but you had even more who did not shop online. And what the COVID-19 have done, if I should try to simplify it, is really it just compressed 2 years of growth into like 4 to 6 weeks.
Wow.
So we just see a significant increase in volumes, which just came just because of this, that people had to stay home, work from home, businesses were closing down and all that. So that's one area where we can just see the volume has just increased 2 years gross volume into like 4 to 6 weeks. Right. Another dimension which is interesting is that obviously as people are home, they're looking more to like home offerings. But the offerings they wanted and also what we had to cater to is that this in-person contact is not allowed and was not allowed. So we needed to make a solution, a technology solution, where we could bring a package to you without being closer than 6 feet to each other. So somehow you need to sign for receiving the parcel. So we put the parcel on the staircase and go 6 feet back, and you sign on an app that you have received. So all this like interperson kind of thing, which prior to COVID-19 was the most normal thing for everybody, suddenly is something you can't do. So we need to develop technologies and processes and procedures around it. And what we really can see now that there's a greater need for unattended deliveries rather than attended deliveries because of all this.
Right. I've seen you did some significant improvement with your past role as Penguin Pickup, for example, and it's probably something you want to bring to the company right now, right? When it comes to those kind of pickups, right?
Yeah, for sure. You can say that it's very interesting if you talk about this between a service point where you pick up yourself at your own choice, or you are at home and you need to wait for somebody who come and bring the parcel to you. And as people are shopping more online, then what was supposed to be convenient is suddenly inconvenient. For instance, if you're shopping like, let's say, once a week online and it gets shipped to your door, you're fine. But if you shop like every day online from different retailers and you need to be home like 3 or 4 times during the day to receive a different delivery man's ringing on your doorbell, it's not convenient anymore. And that's really where you can see that things are changing and the evolution is changing what's convenient and not convenient anymore.
Yeah.
What about, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts also though, because you did mention the exponential growth from just people having to move online. And that's not even just consumers having to do their online shopping of any kind. It's also businesses have had to adapt to that and either get online if they weren't there.
Yeah.
But what about for the consumers who are not adapted to the online anyway, because there's still a big chunk of audience who won't shop online even if they have the option or need to. So we've seen people like Sam's Club that they did their Drive Up app. They launched it, I think they said in like 6 days or something, where elderly people can kind of go up, drive up, do their little shopping list with an associate, and then off they go. What do you think is going to be the impact of the people, the consumer base that isn't adept to online with the sort of technological growth that we're seeing?
What we can see is that those who did not shop online, they've been forced to shop online, so to speak, because that was the only option if you wanted to buy some products.
Right.
And in particular, if you go into like groceries where a lot of people said, hey, I would never have somebody else to pick my apples and my tomatoes because I believe I can pick a better tomato than somebody else. They also have been forced to shop online. And what we can see is, obviously, this is not like, we have not done a ton of research in this, but when I read studies and hear and talk to my network, we can see that those people who were forced to shop even groceries online start to like it. And it takes like 10 to 15 times to become a new habit.
Right.
And I do believe that whenever it becomes a new habit, and you find out, hey, it's not that bad, and in fact, the tomatoes are pretty okay, then you'll probably say, hey, yeah, you'll just stick to it. That will probably be when we come not back to normal, because it will never go back. But when we come and settle on a new norm, when the COVID is more settled down, there will probably be some people who say, hey, I want to go back and pick my own tomatoes, but not everybody who went online. So we do believe that it will be sticky for majority, but there will be a certain percentage who will go back to the old patterns and the old habits.
And would you say this growth, obviously no one knows, and it's a bit of a special situation right now, but would you say that it's sustainable to have such big leaps in this sector of technology and offering?
I think so. Like personally, I do believe that this is the future. I like to go and shop or browse or window shopping in a brick and mortar retailer. For sure I do. But I also been shopping a lot online. It just gives me a lot of time for myself, because I just go, and on the internet, it's so easy to compare prices. It's so easy to compare delivery times and availability of stock. Where when I walk on my feet down to a retail store around the corner, I don't know whether they have the product I want to buy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then if they don't have it, I need to go somewhere else. And then suddenly a good experience just turns into like a pretty shitty experience. And you're suddenly ending up spending 4 or 5 hours and you still can't find the product you want to buy.
Yeah.
So I do believe that technology is also allowing, it gives time back to you. It gives control to your life. And in fact, a shopping experience online can also be pretty cool if they have cool videos, cool images and creatives, and they have like the star reviews and a lot of stuff. Then I think shopping online is pretty cool. And I think it's just like a new norm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can imagine that because a lot of brick and mortar retail, they bank on also the experience of coming into the store, sort of catching your eye with different other things. So you went in to look for one thing, but you actually found, 10 other items or whatnot, speaking to the service department, talking to them, that kind of thing. Online, I can see that there's going to be a lot of need to personalize that experience for the shopper in order to create a good experience. Because on one hand, although you're saying it does create, definitely gives your time back. And I'm not, to be honest with you, I don't even like to go to the mall. I'm not a good browser. Yeah. I do like going only when I know what I need. And so online does provide me that ability to sort of just, say, okay, I'm looking for this, find it quickly. But I think we're going to also see a lot of even maybe some AI come into online retail to personalize that experience for me and make it even that much more selective, Do you think that brands or companies who don't incorporate this kind of technology are going to be, or do you think there's going to be clear winners and losers when it comes to e-commerce online, with bigger brands being able to adopt better technologies to personalize that experience for people? Or do you think there's room for everybody?
No, I don't think so. It's like winners takes it all, for sure. Unfortunately, it is like that. Like those who has the resources to make a personal experience online for sure will win the consumers. And those who can't, if I go to a website and it shows me women's clothing, it's not really interesting for me because I'm a man. So just to make it very simple, like if I'm going to a retailer who's selling men's and women's clothes, I want to be exposed to stuff which I would like to buy. So this personalization is extremely important. I really think like you have to do that. Where I think that brick and mortar has a play is if I don't know what to buy because I need some kind of advice, then I normally go down to like a specialty retail store because I can't figure out online, is it this product or what is the best or whatever. But then I go down to a specialty store where I know I get a good advice. And the likelihood for me to buy in that store is pretty high because it's a good experience and I get a proper, honest advice, product insights, and those kind of things. So that's where I think that the brick and mortar can do something which you can't do online yet. But that for sure, with AI coming very soon, I will just be able to ask my computer, hey, I have this challenge, I need to buy this kind of product. Could you tell me, based on reviews and everything else, like unbiased, what is the best product to buy?
Yeah. And in particular, I just thought about the car industry when you were saying something like about going to brick and mortar for more specialized, the experience about buying a car. A lot of the times that's kind of why you would go speak to someone, talk to them, even though there's so much online for you to do your own homework and cross compare for a different price. But then you have also people like Tesla who sell direct to consumer as well. So I think it's really interesting what you're saying about the going into a store and having it when really for specialty items or to really get that advice. Do you think though that a lot of brands, or what do you think companies are going to have to do in order to move on to the online space successfully? Like, is there going to be a sort of roadmap that they're going to have to take, because so many have been forced to do it, and are sort of learning as they go. Others, even bigger companies with resources who, I don't know if they're everywhere, but Winners in Canada or Winners in North America, they're predominant, they don't have an online shop. They're a huge retail. So I don't know if they opened yet, but they were opening some of their storefront shops because most of them they have a window storefront. It's not in a mall. So what would a company like that have to do to be a real player in that e-commerce world?
Well, I don't think it's a matter of being online. I think it's a matter of understanding what is your business model and what makes you most attractive. And then you define your channels around that. And I think Winners is a very good example. They are like a treasure hunt place, right?
Yeah.
When you walk in, you always see some items where if you come in another day, that item will not be there. So they're building up this anxiety around that you need to buy it because there's only one left. You can't get it again. So I think that's a super cool business model, but it only works for people who doesn't have a planned purchase. Where if you go into a Walmart, you're going into Walmart because you know exactly, you probably even have a shopping list of what you want to buy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And you get pretty upset if you can't get it.
Yeah.
Right? Or if you shop on Walmart online, it's the same, right? You don't want a replacement item. You just want the items you want to buy.
Yeah.
Well, Winners is a different model. It's a treasure hunt model. So does a treasure hunt model work online? I don't know. I don't know whether anybody have done it really. Putting like limited items online. There's probably a few who have done it, but I do believe that the Winners model, that they get so many people through the door, everything. There's always a lineup in Winners, right? Always. I've never been able to go to the cashier right away. I always wait like 5-10 minutes and a Winners. That's a pretty cool business model. If I was the CEO of Winners, I would probably just stick to that model. It seems like it works very well. And Costco is in fact the same, just in a different scale. Costco is the same, where it's a treasure hunt, specialty items you can't find anywhere else. I know they're selling online, but I do believe that a majority of the retail sales is coming from the brick and mortar. Right?
Are we going to see a little bit more with this ease of offering? Are we going to see more manufacturer offer their product directly to the consumer, you think?
Well, the biggest challenge for a manufacturer or a brand, you can say, is that the distribution is just very expensive. So if you take a manufacturer and you always produce in bulk of, let's say, 5, 10, 100,000 pieces at a time, same color kind of thing. That doesn't really fit into the retail consumption. So you need to have like a logistics in between where you warehouse the products, where you pick and pack to orders. And if you're a brand, you do that on a case pack and a pallet level because everything is bulk. And you are just passing on the complexity of dealing with consumers to retailers and online channels. If suddenly you need to apply this model where you're selling by piece and not by case, then all your margins will be eaten up by your fulfillment cost and delivery cost. And as a consumer, if you turn it around, normally when you're purchasing, you're buying more than just one item. You normally, in particular, if you're into like daily products, and groceries, you're not just buying a toothpaste from Colgate and you buy a Coke from Coca-Cola. So there are just certain items where I just don't see that they can go direct to consumers. It just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense, right?
Then you have some other areas where it makes sense, like for instance, like you and me worked in the toy company. Then you can do it.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Then for sure it's a different thing. Because many times a toy is like planned purchase, right? This is what my son wants, and I'm buying that. And you don't really want to go to necessarily Toys R Us to buy this product because you just buy it online. And it can be other products where you say, I know exactly what I want. It is like pretty high value. So like it's one product, one transaction. Then you will go to the brand. But when you're getting into this, like buying across multiple brands, low ticket items kind of thing, I don't really see the direct consumer will ever work. Yeah. Sorry for my blunt statement, but
oh no, absolutely.
It's still, but you're just living a physical world.
Yeah.
And I think that too many tech companies don't understand.
Yeah.
There's a physics here, and at the moment you can print the toothpaste in my bathroom, yes, I will buy it direct from Colgate.
Yeah.
But before that, I will not buy one tube of Colgate from have it shipped to my door.
It's actually good news for some of the retail, because even prior to this big COVID thing, we talked about retail having problems and whatnot, especially now they're going to be under even more pressure. But it just underlined where is the need for absolute retail is in those sort of sphere and product. So it's actually a good news where in fact it sort of invite people to invest more in that model in a way.
Oh, for sure. You need the retailer is like an aggregator, right? Retail is very much logistics. Whether it's brick and mortar or online, it is a logistics model, right? And it's all about distribution of products. That's the value at having it, right? They're not like changing the products. They're just distributing products. So they just have to understand how they fit into this play.
Just to kind of circle back a little bit to the e-commerce I wanted to ask you about was because we see that even though there's been that surge of everybody moving online, there's been a huge demand on the consumer to change their online behavior, or expectations, I should say. Because beforehand, the expectations to go online was, like Amazon, you get it next day delivery, it's at your house. And now across the board, I mean, I'm still waiting on items that I ordered what feels like 2 years ago, but it's really like a week ago, and everybody's sort of asked to change their expectations. So are we going to see a change in the whole scope of e-commerce in terms of consumer behavior expectations, or even on the retailer side of things, or just a different future for how people expect to receive and buy packages?
Well, it's a very good question. And the answer is it depends what you buy, and it depends on what your willingness to pay is for a delivery. So if you're buying like a high value item and you feel like you just want it tomorrow, you're probably willing to pay 5% of that value in delivery cost because you just feel like you need it tomorrow, and maybe you need to go on a weekend trip or whatever kind of thing, you need that item. But for daily items, low ticket items, low value, the willingness to pay for delivery is not there from a consumer standpoint. We can see that. Consumers do expect that the delivery is free. And everybody knows delivery is not free, it costs money. So who is paying for the delivery? Consumers don't want to pay for it, or very little, very marginal. It's like a hygiene factor. So it comes back to the shipper or those who sell the merchandise. They need to fund the delivery. And same day, point-to-point delivery is extremely expensive. It's like hiring a taxi, right?
Yeah.
So that will only be a niche market. So we do believe that, and all research supports this, that a next day option is fine for everybody. And with Amazon Prime, where it's part of your Prime membership for most products, that it's part of the fee, people feel like, hey, I'm not paying for it. But they're paying like what, $89 or $100 per year for Amazon Prime. So they are paying for the delivery, right? But in a different way. So coming back to your question, I do believe that it's very much driven by what you buy. And over time, consumers will adapt to that. So if you need a cheeseburger tonight, you're probably willing to pay through Uber Eats or whoever, $5, whatever it costs to bring it to your door, because you don't want to walk down the street to do it.
Right.
But if you're buying shampoo and toothpaste, you probably expect it's part of the purchase. And if you're buying a Tesla, you're probably willing to whatever, right? So I do believe that consumers will adapt to what they're buying, and they will understand that, okay, when I'm buying this, that's what I expect. When I'm buying this, it's a different thing. And it's not one size fits all.
Yeah, I can even see actually that I've seen a lot of companies before COVID who were trying to be a lot more environmentally friendly, not offering the next day delivery to their consumers. So I can see a lot of companies even trying to jump on that bandwagon or jump on things, labeling themselves as environmentally friendly or whoever, their efforts.
I would say that in terms of sustainability, I think it's a real thing now, not only me, but we do see this as a real thing where consumers are willing, if they could shop online and you deliver fossil fuel free or carbon emission neutral or even carbon emission positive, they're willing to choose that. Not everybody, but more consumers are actually willing to pay for a carbon emission neutral delivery. And I know I live in Sweden, which is probably leading in the world in terms of sustainability. But normally you have like a first movers and then the fast followers and then everybody else comes. So we do see this as a trend, and it's a real trend and a real value prop. It is.
Oh, it's very encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even for consumers, we see the push in supporting local, but there's the environmental aspect of also supporting local as well, and shopping local and not getting everything shipped from, everywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
I don't know if we wanted to touch on that a little bit about even just the change in globalization, how that's even forcing people to make that local shift.
Well, I have my personal passion around this. I do believe that we should support local business if we can, because I do believe that's sustainable for the environment on a broad sense. But I also, again, if I'm looking in statistics and research, this COVID-19 have also changed people's mindset a lot. I do believe so. So all around, let's talk about fast fashion. Like this buy, consume, throw away behavior is a little bit like, this is not really sustainable, and people realize this. And by the way, it doesn't really bring any good things to the world at all.
Yeah.
So I do believe, but this is my personal hypothesis, I do believe that this COVID-19 will probably force people to think more about, hey, when I'm buying a new t-shirt, instead of buying one for $9.99 down around the corner where it's been from a sweat factory in Bangladesh or China or whatever, and maybe even child workers, I would rather spend $50 or $20 or whatever the right price is for one which is like sustainable, produced locally around Montreal. And I know there's a family behind this. They are passionate around it. They're not cheating with anything about the authenticity around the brand and the way they produce it. And it also lasts longer, kind of thing. So instead of buying 5 t-shirts over a 2-year span, I'm just buying one and the price is the same. So I do believe that those kind of things will change. And we will see the consumption on a global level will go down, not in dollars necessarily, but obviously because of all the employment it will. But take that aside, I do believe in terms of volume, it will go down, but probably not in dollars spent.
So you think it'll stay down though?
Yeah.
It will really change people's mindsets on how they're shopping. You don't think that it will revert back?
Yeah, and also, you have tried the same as probably another 6 or 7 billion people around the world. You need to stay home, and people realize, hey, cooking is not that bad. I don't need to go to a restaurant every evening. It is pretty cool to cook together and eat together around the table. The basic needs of just to have a hike in the local forest, not walking around and buying stuff in stores all the time. You can't do that because they're closed. There's a new reality where people are realizing that there is more in the world than just consumption. There is in fact some true values which will impact shopping behavior over time. I really do believe so. And I talk to a lot of people about it, and they tell me this is the truth now. And they don't really feel like they want to go back to the old way of consumption.
Yeah. And so how do you think companies are dealing with sort of the halt and of globalization, or just even being able to, like, if we talk about supply chain for companies, reaching out to their distributors or their manufacturers across the world and not being able to in some cases. How do you think that they're going to be dealing with that going forward in the future? Do you think that a lot of companies will also turn to local manufacturing and making product themselves if their business model can support it?
Well, the challenge is that it's not that easy. It's easier said than done.
Yeah.
So if you look into if you're looking into manufacturing of items where there's a lot of parts in it, a lot of those parts probably only produced by one or two different suppliers in Asia. So, for instance, if you're into IT production, like you're making like my iPhone, it has a lot of items inside or parts where there's only one or two suppliers. And those two suppliers are, by the way, only in Asia. So you can say, hey, I would like to produce this iPhone locally. Yeah, but you still have a certain amount of parts, which is sourced from Asia. And all that infrastructure, to move that infrastructure of the parts, either tier 2, 1, 2, 3, or 4 parts into a finished good item and move that to like locally produced in the States or Canada, is a pretty big thing. It's not that easy. It's very expensive, and it does not always make sense. Then obviously you can build up like a low inventory of parts so you can produce locally. I just say the complexity of some products, it's a very difficult thing to do. So I don't think it's realistic, to be honest. And then you have some other products where you just have a more local parts for that finished good item. Then it probably makes more sense that you can do it either full manufacturing or semi-manufacturing or assembly locally. But we are in a global world and we have global competition. So it is really, really difficult to get away and convince consumers, hey, are you willing to pay 5 times more for the same item? Because now we produce it in Canada instead of in China. And there might be a philosophic willingness to do it, but the ability to do it is not there because, by the way, I don't have a job now, right? So, yeah.
Exactly. Do you see any rules changing though? Because I know my wife is from Brazil, and over there they're pretty strict about taxing product from abroad. We don't have this in North America, or very little, and I don't think so in Europe as well. But do you see those kind of rules changing and adapting to that kind of model? In this way, we would have an advantage doing that.
That's a tough question, because you can say there was a trade war, and there still is, between the States and China, right? With a lot of duties imposed by the Trump administration. And this is purely a trade war where he says, hey guys, you are just manipulating with the currency. RMB is not on the right level. Yes. So that means that you are in fact out competing local manufacturers in the States by keeping it artificially low. And I do believe he's right about this. There's a lot of things I don't agree with him about, but I do believe there's some truth in what he's saying. And then you can say, as a region, like you are in NAFTA, right? Mexico, US, and Canada. Should you have some kind of duty wall around NAFTA to protect your local manufacturing and sourcing? It might make sense, because you can say if you don't have it, then your local manufacturers will always be competing with somebody who's probably partly subsidized by a government. And that is also unfair competitiveness. But it's an extremely complex question. And I do believe that will probably be one of the outcomes, that there will be more duties imposed within or as a wall around trading unions. But I'm guessing right now. Let's see how it goes. Yeah.
It just sounds like during this COVID time, I mean, I'm sure this has been said so many times, but it's just literally everything is being affected at every level, whether that's companies or people or people that personally. You can see every level of the chain of a business being affected somehow, whether it's their employee to their manufacturing, their supply, everything. What do you think is going to be, what has been the biggest impact for companies, or maybe for your company in particular, but what do you think has been the biggest impact for businesses in this time?
That you don't need to come to the office and the business still works. I think that is like a big learning. If we look at our company, we've been closed down for 2.5 months, and people have been working from home and it still works fine. And I think that is that in fact, we can have meetings on like we have now with technology. I think that has been the biggest positive thing out of this COVID-19.
Yeah.
We don't need to jump into a plane and take an interview with you and me in Montreal. We can do it online and it works fine. And we could work together in the same company globally and meeting online. And it's in fact works pretty well because we've been forced to do it.
Yeah.
Where before it was just a choice, and people don't like to change. That's the human nature. We don't like to get into new areas. It's part of the change management philosophy and theory. So if we're forced to change, then suddenly we find out, hey, it's pretty okay. I think that's a big thing for our companies. That's one learning. In fact, working online makes perfect sense. And all that drives, I believe, a lot of other things. Like the reason why people are moving to the city is because that's where all the jobs are. And I don't want to commute back and forth because I'm just sitting in a traffic jam. But now with the COVID-19, you realize, hey, in fact, I can sit in a nice house 50 or 100 kilometers away from my work, and I just come to the office like once or twice a week, and I work from home and everything is fine. I get way more for my dollars I spent by buying this nice house out in the countryside. It's more healthy for my kids. There's a lot of other things. I do believe that those kind of things will change also based on this. And then I do believe that companies have also realized that they're more resilient than they believed they were. In fact, very few supply chains has really broken down in the COVID-19. Somehow the supply chain have managed to find replacement parts or find new suppliers, or in fact deal with all this, And we still have been able to buy goods on worldwide with very limited out of stock kind of thing. So it seems like supply chains is pretty agile, more agile than we believed they were.
Have you seen a lot of that in Sweden, though, the supply, if you go into the grocery stores? Because I know here, for sure, in the US, for sure here, I mean, I've gone into grocery stores where I see aisles completely empty. So there's times where you have no access to the toilet paper, then no access to the flour, then no access to, and it's just kind of been moving. And I know a lot of companies have been struggling to just figure out where it's going to come from, at what point, when, how, and doing that. Have you seen a lot of that in Sweden?
Yeah, but this is like the bullwhip effect. If you look into supply chain and forecasting, right? Normally when you model a forecast and make a plan, a demand plan, you anticipate I'm selling that many toilet papers every single day out of that retail store because you have the profile for that. Then you have this COVID-19 coming in, and I have no idea why people believe that they need to buy a lot of toilet paper. Probably because they think, okay, I need to be in my house for the next 2 months. I can't walk out the door. I don't want to run out of toilet paper. That's the last thing I want to do. So they go down and buy for, let's say, 3 or 4 months consumption, where in the past they just bought for the next 2 weeks. And that demand is just like 8 times of the normal demand profile for that item, because that's the way it works in retail. So suddenly you're just out of stock in the entire supply chain, but there is in fact enough toilet paper for everybody. But nobody planned for this, that they suddenly buy 8 times more toilet papers than they used to. And the biggest challenge is now, because people realized, hey, it's fine. Now I have toilet paper for the next 6 months. Then they're not going to buy toilet paper for the next 6 months, right? And then suddenly it will be full of toilet papers in the stores. This is like so damn complex. Some of my language in supply chain is when the demand is seeing those spikes you don't forecast. The best you can do is, in fact, to cut out the spikes and not plan against it, because it just gives more noise than it adds value to your supply chain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You did mention, not to go back, but you were talking about one of the things you'll see is people kind of moving out to the suburbs. I did want to touch on something because I was listening to a video. I can't remember if it was just recently, but it was the mayor of Montreal, Egil Moller Nielsen, and she was talking. This was the subject about how are people going to retain the value of a city? Yeah. Is there going to be still a need to have these sort of metropolitan cities? It was really an interesting topic, actually, when you brought it up, too, because they started talking about things that people have been planning 30 years down the line to try to make their city a little bit, more pedestrian friendly, greener, the whole 9 yards. We've seen a jump also, like you've seen a surge in technology happen quicker. So you see countries like Italy who have now, widened their sidewalks. They're allowing people to go, there've been all these improvements to their cities that they were planning on doing X amount of years down the line. Even though people can kind of work from everywhere, do you think that, not to go back to e-commerce, but do we see that e-commerce is going to help that or make it worse? Or how do we see that kind of playing all together? If technically you can work from anywhere, why not be in the city if it's very pedestrian friendly and a lot of access to all kinds of things and online shopping and all that kind of stuff? Or will we see more shops like Penguin Pickup?
I think like when you're looking into shopping online, offline, or whatever you're doing, it's just shopping and it's just different channels. And the last thing you want is to spend unnecessary energy and unnecessary cost on getting your product. You just want to spend that all your spending is going towards the product and not the services of getting the product or the delivery models around it. And the last thing you want is also that you are dictated by how to get it, because that's like just a disruption in your life. People are on the go all the time now.
Right.
And people are very dynamic in the way they plan the day. And I don't think, or maybe you even realize it yourself, like it's not like you wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to do this my entire day. You probably change your plan many times during that. Oh, I want to go here. No, I changed my mind. I'll go here. So then suddenly it makes very much sense that you can just pick up whatever you purchased online, which is like close to where you live. And you don't need to plan your life around it anymore. It's just conveniently located here on your way home, 100 meters from your apartment or house, wherever you live in Montreal. I just know that I just go in and whatever I bought yesterday online from 5 different retailers is just waiting for me. And I'll just grab it under my arm and walk home. And then you also feel like, hey, it's also good for my spend because it's cheaper than bringing those 5 items to my home, because that needs 5 different drivers. Now, you're taking care of the last mile yourself as a consumer, but you don't get out of your way to get it. And then thirdly, you also know it's good for the environment because it's not 5 trucks which park outside the street and you're not home and all that. So you just feel like, hey, this is better, not only for me, but for the environment and my wallet and the society. It takes trucks away from the street. So I do believe that those kind of models will mature over time.
And probably have a big impact in cities as well, though, because I think that even though we maybe presume that people will go out, out to the suburbs, I do think that, I know for me, I wouldn't want to have to jump in the car every time I have to go somewhere. I do like having the proximity, a lot of things around me, able to walk to them, like you said. I don't want to have to be, chained to my house either, waiting for 10 other packages or whatnot like that. But yeah, I think it's interesting on how we're going to see the cities change and what retail will look like in cities as well for consumers. I think that can be something interesting.
No, I think it's a very interesting. We are definitely getting all the way around. I think I think the sustainability is I really think that's interesting. So also when you're shopping online, everything is packed because that's the way it works, right? It needs to be in a brown box. There needs to be some fillers because the product is smaller than the cardboard and kind of thing. I don't think this is sustainable either. We need to find a solution for this. The amount of waste of shopping online, waste in terms of packaging material and all that, you bring it into the city and now you need to get it out of the city. And I had several meetings when I lived in Canada with both the Ontario province, but also the federal and also the city of Toronto to talk about how do you deal with this. One thing is the trucks coming in and out and the traffic jam they generate, but all the waste is in fact a humongous challenge to deal with. So I do believe that that's an area where you need to build a supply chain model where you can bring products to consumers without having to pack it in brown boxes. And that's what we in fact developed at Penguin Pickup together with Walmart. So when you bought groceries online with Walmart, whether you picked it up on your own or got it delivered to your home, then there was no cardboards on the grocery side. Everything was like if you went to the local store and bought the items yourself. And then you can even get further down to this, which I find interesting, is, hey, if you shop products online, it doesn't mean that the product has to look the same way when you get it delivered. So let me give you one example.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Packaging. Huge deal.
Why not say the packaging is for creatives, but what you get is more like a recyclable kind of packaging? You know what I mean, Dominic?
Absolutely. That would make a lot of sense.
Yes. Yeah. And in particular, if you look into a lot of products, the packaging cost is representing the majority of the cost of goods sold. It's not the actual product or the content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and all the work behind
Yes.
it, right? All the development behind it, all the packaging that is optimized for a shelf.
Yes.
It would go away. A lot of headaches
Yeah.
would suddenly disappear with this new mentality. It's a little bit like the city. Like when you think about, are we going to build another bridge to go in the city? If people can work from home, like it changes the whole mentality just like that. Same thing with product that we just talked about with packaging. This is super interesting to see what's going to happen in the next few months only, I think.
Yeah. So I think that I think and hope there will be increased focus on packaging, both primary and secondary packaging, because that's a lot of waste and it's not good for the environment at all.
Yeah, actually, when you were mentioning that, I was trying to think of an example in my head, because you're right. There's the primary and secondary packaging that you do get. And I know I've experienced it where you order something online and then Amazon sends you a box bigger than your body with billing, and your item is tiny.
Yeah.
There are some brands though. I saw one online a couple months back. It's a toothpaste. They wanted to change the model of how people brush their teeth in terms of the package is not recyclable, then it comes in more and more and more. So they send you what looks like pill bottles, and it's a chewable. So it's a reusable bottle, glass container that you can use, and the toothpaste is these little chewables that are good for your teeth, good for the environment, for children, the whole thing. And then that's sort of changing. But at the end of the day, to get it to you, if you're not actually going to the store to pick it up in bags or going to like a Penguin pickup, there's still that element of how it's going to get to you. So I think that's still interesting how that's going to unfold.
If you look at in Scandinavia, when you're buying soda water bottles in a store, all that is in like a pub. It's in a glass bottle. And when you purchase this, you are paying some kind of fee for this glass bottle. And that money you get back when you return it. And then it's like a total supply chain, which is all about washing the bottles and bringing them back to the breweries. And they put a new pub on it. And it's like a closed system kind of thing. And for a lot of items, I do believe you could do the same. Why not? Well, like a marmalade and
yeah, we are seeing a lot more stores pop up like that. That's for sure. I know stores with even things. I've always said to friends of mine, I was like, I just want to go to store and be able to refill my shampoo and refill soap. So we are seeing a couple of stores in Canada also pop up with that popularity.
It would reduce the plastic use tremendously as well, which is another huge problem. Yeah.
Exactly, and it's like and plastic we know is like a pretty bad material, right? Like there's a lot of toxic in plastic. Even if you try to contain it, it still travels from the plastic through your skin into your blood, right? Like a lot of consumers don't know this, but plastic is not really good. I would never put food items in plastic. First of all, like I would never have
glass containers.
Containers, yes, never.
So let me leave you with this then, because it's sort of I find they're a bit opposing, these arguments that we're kind of having, where on one hand, reduce the consumption, reduce the boxing, reduce the packaging. And on the other hand, we're seeing the surge of online shopping, online e-commerce, that's going to require some kind of change in the way consumers are purchasing or receiving the items. How do you think the two are going to be able to?
I think it marries very well. Like what we talk about now, if there was only like a physical retail, it does not really marry very well. But it marries very well when you're online, because if you're combining like online creatives, videos with AI and a lot of technology solutions, you can still present the products in a very cool way. And then the biggest question is, when it gets delivered to you, do you still perceive it as the same value because it looks different? But you should have a good feeling around it, because it's good for the environment, and what you're buying is the product, and that this excellent shampoo which just makes your hair like super cool every day, and that's what you're buying, and not how this plastic bottle looks. So I do hope that consumers will find out that it's the actual product they're buying, and not buying
the marketing idea.
They're still buying. They're buying the marketing idea online, but they're getting the product. You follow me? Like, it's a different way of consumptions and experience, and I do believe that people will cater very well to this. But obviously, we just need to understand it's going to be like that.
Yeah. I think it could also be an intergenerational way of people purchasing as well, because we see the surge of, social media like Instagram, where everything is about the way something looks, and sharing products online and how it looks and everything like that, versus, other people. There are companies doing it really well, though. There's the skincare brand, The Ordinary. They're a Canadian brand, and they are pretty much I don't want to say bidding, but outpricing a lot of skincare brands and selling most of their product under $10. And the reason they're even able to do that is because they've made a decision not to spend any marketing money on packaging or anything like that. So, their whole philosophy, their name, The Ordinary, you get a tube, very bland, very basic with the, what it is inside, and that you're getting a good product. And so they're surging. Also, though, I think it's just going to we need to see more people sort of change their habits and behaviors around that.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. I try to buy products and not to buy a fantasy of the product. You follow me? But because marketing is very much about creating this fantasy of, you buy this product.
They may want to make you feel good about what you're buying. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sitting on a beach in Hawaii or whatever. I really more believe in buying the product, which will make me happy every single day, rather than the marketing campaign. So I just bought a new bicycle. It's a foldable bicycle. It's Brompton. It's from UK, handmade in UK. And I was watching this YouTube video with this guy, the CEO who founded this company. And they talk about his approach to the market and how he grew the company, and said, well, instead of spending 10, 20, 30% on marketing and advertisement, we decided to spend those percentages on building a better product. And when people got that product, they were so surprised it was so great.
Like it should be. Yeah.
That they were referring that product to friends and family.
Right.
Like a net promoter score. And that's the way he built the brand. So that's the way he did it. And I thought, like, hey, this is pretty cool. I hear engineer talking about this, but he thought about this. He would spend the money. He said the consumers are better off that we spend the money on the product rather than on marketing. That was his statement. And I'm not saying marketing should not be there, but I find it interesting.
Yeah, I feel it's an old idea. I almost feel like it used to be like that in the past, where people had, a passion driven behind building something high quality, and then the marketing came after to support it. And for a very long time, it was almost the opposite. If you had a very good marketing idea, you could support a crappy product. I feel like it's almost like the return of the scale here of the.
I agree, Dominic. I'm in a board in Canada in a product company, and I was talking to the CEO because we bring a new product to the market, and he's all about building up this marketing hype and the demand and all that. And I said to him, his name is Pang. I said, Pang, don't forget, we have to deliver a product which is exceeding the perceived value of that product by the consumers, because otherwise you're just building up something for nothing. So we need to deliver a product which just surpasses the expectations of the consumer. So next time we launch a new product, there will be even more who want it. This is the right way to do it. You should never go and compromise on your product. And when I say this, it doesn't mean that the product has to be luxury or very expensive. I'm talking about the perceived value. So if you know the perceived value is like this, like say $100, and you feel like you get $120 product for your $100. As a consumer, you feel pretty good, right? I want to buy that again. But if you're spending $100 and the perceived value is $50, you feel like shit. You almost feel like cheated, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what people have to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so many times we experience it without even realizing it. And during our daily lives, I don't think people have done a good enough job sort of cutting through the noise of all that and sort of realizing these little things. And now with COVID, everybody sort of has had to take that time to understand, especially people with, if you're out of a job, you really, really focus now on the value of where you're buying things. What are you buying? How long can you make it last? The quality of things. People are becoming a little bit, even that much more aware of consumers and consumer brands. I mean, and even going down the line as to where they're getting, are they getting local? Are they not? What is their, sustainability? now we've had a time to sort of really process a lot of a brand and a company's front to end, how they're building or delivering products to you. So I think it's really interesting actually to see that. And you're absolutely right, because it's not necessarily a new concept, perceived value. Of course it's not, but it's something that I think only consumers now and people are sort of forced to really be aware of. And hopefully we'll see a lot of really great products come out of support for a lot of great products out there, I think, for sure.
Yeah, focus on sustainable products, good quality products, less chemicals, more like natural ingredients in a broad sense. I do believe that is the business model going forward. Like I said before, like 30 minutes ago, this like fast consumption kind of thing, fast pace. We learned that doesn't really work. And we talk about challenge of the COVID-19, but the biggest challenge we have in the world is the global warming of the planet.
Absolutely.
And all related to all this, like all the ecosystem is dying all around the world, and they're dying because of us. We can't blame anybody else than ourselves.
Yeah.
The coral reef in Australia, I read
huge numbers. Is
it 40% of it is already dead?
Yeah, I think it's even more than that.
Yeah, and this is driven by global warming. The global warming is because of our consumption.
Yeah, so I think maybe the message then at the end of the day, hopefully, will be, if people can take anything from even just our conversation, is, like you said, quality, sustainability, ingenuity, and innovation, whether it's through packaging or online, personalization, experience, and all that through retail, online, e-commerce. Hopefully people can take those notes down and sort of see how they can apply those necessary changes to their own product, company, or resources that they have right now.
Yeah, and I think companies and consumers and people like us have realized that in fact we can change and we can make a humongous impact if we just decide to do it or are forced to do it. So this global warming, we can in fact do a lot of things. We can just stop traveling. We can work through IT. We can do a lot of things. And I think that's the good thing. Well, when I spoke prior to this crisis, spoke to a lot of friends and family, said, yeah, what can I do about the global warming? I'm just one out of 7 billion people and blah, 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 right? But yeah, we can do a lot to the better. And I think that's like another good thing we got out of the COVID-19.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we had a great conversation and a lot of really good insights here. And it was really, really great meeting you, and also even just chatting for this long. So we really appreciate the time that you took to be with us here, and we're excited to get this out to our audience.
It's awesome. It's been awesome to talk to you guys. Anytime in the future, I would be more than happy to do it again.
Thank you so much, Egil. It's been super great and fantastic, positive as well.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.